Hey everybody, it's Wahome from Wahome Gitonga Coaching. Hope you all had an amazing Tuesday. So welcome to another episode of Business Conversation Interviews, where we interview the most successful people from across various industries, from business authors to entrepreneurs to business owners to influencers, doctors, lawyers, a variety of different people who are successful. So today we've got the privilege of interviewing Hans Schumann. Now Hans is one of the top UK coaches in terms of performance and an executive coach. So he's going to be sharing with key insights with us on how to master your performance, increase your confidence and create a winning mindset. So you're going to get lots of key insights from Hans tonight. So without further ado, let me welcome Hans. Hi Hans, can you
Hi,
hear me?
Homer. How are you?
Yes, now I can hear you. Perfect.
Great. Technology is working. That's a good start.
Yes. So it's a pleasure to have you on here tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah.
So we'll start with the first question. Tell us about yourself. What is your background and how did you get into your business?
Yeah, sure. Like many coaches, I wasn't always a coach. My previous life was I was a lawyer
Mm.
for 24 years, first working for one of the big city firms in London and then in-house for the bank Santander. And my story is very familiar to the story that now my clients
Mm.
have. As a young man, I just had no idea what to do with my life. I was kind of upper average on everything. There was no discipline I really excelled in, and I had no idea what was important to me in my life.
Mm.
So I choose the sensible thing, that what people told me would be the right thing to do. There were lots of academics around me. So, okay, I guess I go to university. And then what should I study? Well, I knew lots of lawyers, so why not study law?
Mm.
And it gave me everything that people told me would give me. It was indeed a job full of security, really good salary, status, intellectual stimulation, but it never really rocked my boat. I
Mm.
got for the first, so I call them founder years, I got a kick out of proving myself in that profession. But after that, it was just really stressful high performance for something that didn't really matter so much to me. And what happened is I burned out really badly. I was ill with an autoimmune disease for 2 years.
Mm.
Very extreme case, 14 months housebound. I never thought I would be healthy again and live a normal life again. But I managed to overcome that, and partly also with the help of my own coach at the time. And when I came out of this, I asked myself, did I really just come back to continue the same life? Working in an open plan office with no natural daylight, managed by people who use fear and
Mm.
pressure to manage me, and in an industry I didn't care about. And my answer was no. And I asked myself, how can I earn money for doing those things that I enjoy doing most? And that was reading self-help books, having deep, powerful one-to-one conversations, going on retreats, having my own coaching. And that really was life coaching. And that's prompted me to start this new career.
Mm. Okay. So what's behind your business? Like, what is it specifically in terms of your coaching business that you chose? Because obviously coaching is a very broad suspect. So what is it about your business that was behind the idea?
Well, there isn't actually any magic, funky idea behind my business other than that I enjoy having powerful conversations.
Mm.
I'm very introverted, and I like to say that coaching is the most beautiful expression of my introverted nature because it's personal, it's deep, and it can be life changing.
Mm.
And I get a deep satisfaction out of having those conversations and then seeing how it impacts positively on the life of the other person.
Mm. Okay, I like that. So what's the biggest challenge you've personally faced when starting? How did you manage to overcome it?
You mean biggest challenge in my business?
Yeah. What's the
Yeah,
biggest
I
challenge you had?
mean,
Yeah.
I found it really difficult to create a marketing strategy that worked for me. Um, as you may have noticed yourself, as soon as you become a coach, you get bombarded with marketers who try to sell you their
Mm.
foolproof six-figure salary strategy if you just build this one sales
Yeah.
funnel. And there's a lot of noise there. And I tried a lot of stuff, lost a lot of money, and it took me about really 4 years to get to this place where I have a steady stream of inquiries without having to do much, and there's now an ease to the business that makes it really pleasurable. But it took me a long time to figure out what works for me.
Mm. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Like you constantly get those emails or inquiries. They're kind of like I see them as get rich schemes because they promise you like huge money at the end of it, and you have to pay for this big program, and it can be very misleading if you're starting out as a coach.
Yeah, and the reason why I think they don't really work is because a marketing strategy needs be bespoke to your personality as a coach and also suitable for your clients and your
Mm.
market. So for example, Facebook isn't great for me. LinkedIn is, because that's where my clients hang out and take me seriously. And for me to have a marketing strategy that is maybe built mainly on public speaking wouldn't be right. I enjoy public speaking, I can be good at it, but it would drain me as an introvert doing it all the time.
Mm.
So for me, using more technology and doing it behind my computer is far more effective. So I cracked really SEO and Google Ads. I'm doing it really well. I know exactly what part of the market I want. And there's a bit of a learning journey to figure that out for us.
Mm. Yeah, agree with that. So what do you think is the unique skill that's allowed you to become so successful?
Unique skill allow me to be very successful. Well, I wouldn't say it's unique, but the
Mm.
skill that helped me most was perseverance and adaptability.
Mm.
Because I had lots of setbacks, but I just tried a different thing. I really wanted to figure that out. And I've been quite brave doing things I felt uncomfortable with, whether it was public speaking or publishing videos and putting things out that weren't perfect, because I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, but I had to
Mm.
learn just to let go and try things. And it's through error and trial that gradually I found something that worked for me.
Yeah, I get the idea with the perfectionist then, because I think a lot of coaches, when they start out, there is that fear of it has to be perfect, and you know they end up falling procrastination. They never actually do it. Um,
Yeah, a good example is the typical coach, and I was like this also. We think, okay, I need to start with a website. And for the website, I need to have a logo. I spent £900 on getting a logo designed, and I didn't like any of the proposals because they were all not good enough, and really wasting time and energy on something that wasn't really necessary for my business. Or the whole drive that many coaches have, I need to have my niche figured out, and I need to have the perfect website and all the message.
mm,
Whilst what we really need is just to start somewhere, get something out, and everything else will come into place, and we're going to change it probably every year anyway, because we change as a coach.
mm,
We try out different things, and we just have more information points of reference to find something that works for us.
that's true. It is ever changing, your
Yeah.
marketing strategy. So, yeah, I totally agree with you there. So, what advice would you give to someone who's thinking of creating a business, but they're too afraid to make that first step?
Well, I would say make the first step smaller
Mm.
until they feel comfortable with that first step. I mean, whenever clients tell me that they're thinking about just um, getting rid of their day job and then start a new business, I always advise them to be cautious about that.
Mm.
There's so many ways in which we can make this easy with small steps. For example, starting it after work or at weekends. And once we have something that we've built, then maybe move our daytime job from 5 days to 4 days and gradually phase the new business in to make it safe and manageable, so that we don't actually need to be scared, because each step is manageable.
I like that. Breaking it down to small steps and making it more manageable so it's not overwhelming. That's a good idea. So what are the most common reasons why people come to you for coaching, and how can you help people?
Yeah, I mean, it falls in the main categories either, well, let me start in a different way. The people who come to me are normally already quite successful in their career, but they're at a point where they're ready for change. For some of them, that is career change. For others, it is career progression or increasing their leadership skills, or it is just having a better work-life balance so that they enjoy life to the fullest. And how do I help with them? Well, the journey is really different for each particular client and how they like to work. Some clients want to work on surface problems, that is achieving certain goals. And here we would have clarity about what is it that you want, how can you get there, what's the strategy. The more powerful work is if we go deeper. And that's probably where I'm best at, by helping people understand, how do I function at a deeper level? What are my patterns of thinking, feelings, and behaviors? And how do they serve me sometimes and sometimes not? And when we manage to understand and adjust those processes, the client will be much more self-empowered to create those goals, to achieve those goals by themselves.
I like that. So in a recent survey of 9,000 workers across various industries in the UK by a company called UK Workplace, they found that 70% of women suffer from lack of confidence and 60% of men suffer from lack of confidence. So in your opinion, why do you feel that so many people are lacking confidence in the workplace?
Well, first of all, if that's what the study says, I would disagree with that. If it said that people believe they lack confidence, I would understand it. But here's the thing, I don't believe that there's a single person on this planet who lacks confidence. I'm going to tell you why. And you may think this is playing with words, but I think it's really important to really acknowledge. We all are confident in certain things. I'm confident I can find my way through London to get to work. I'm confident I can cook a dinner. I'm confident that I can go on a date. But maybe I'm not confident in public speaking, or I'm not confident to take on this new role as a CEO. And the reason why I think this is important is when we say, oh, I don't lack confidence, first of all, the problem seems much bigger than it actually is. And it's almost impossible to tackle it because there's nothing to latch on. So when people come to me and they say they want to work on their confidence, the first thing is I analyze with them, what specifically is it? We drill it down, and suddenly we have a much smaller problem on the table. And then it's also much easier to create a strategy to improve in that area.
I like that. That's true. Breaking it, yeah, I like that. It's a good idea. So just going on that lines, so what advice would you give to someone who came to you and they suffer from low self-esteem and they're looking to really overcome this?
Yeah. Okay, self-esteem, that's now slightly different to confidence. I would take stock of what they currently believe about themselves. It's like a negative thought diary, because these things probably run on autopilot and prevent us from loving ourselves and being courageous enough to do some of the things that we want to create. So once I know what their internal program is, or what they think about themselves, then we decide, okay, what can we do about this? Sometimes there are beliefs, things that we always believe, and then there are certain processes where we can resolve them, or at least give them less power. Sometimes these are things that we only occasionally think, but not always. And that means there's a part of our personality that believes that. We have all these different parts that sometimes conflict with each other. And that will be a different journey where we create a relationship with that part and try to work with it rather than trying to fight it.
I like that. I like how you give that description there. It's a good way of looking at tackling negative emotions and thoughts. So So what's the key, do you feel, to having deep fulfillment in life?
Key for having deep fulfillment in life. Okay, well, it starts by actually having clarity about what that means. No, I'd stop myself. Don't want to say most people don't, because who am I to know? But often we don't really have that clarity. And if we don't have the clarity what fulfillment means, then it's more difficult to consciously create it. So fulfillment, in my definition, means filling our life full with those things that matter to us most. And I've got a process where I help my clients understand what that might be, what is most important to them. And I take them through a series of questions where there are clues, where there's evidence in their life of what's most important to them. For example, what do you always find time for, even if you don't have time? What do you always find money for, even if you don't have money? What do you always read about? What do you talk about? And these answers give me some clue about common themes of areas or subjects or topics that the person is naturally drawn towards. And that then helps us create a compass to decide what else needs to be created in their life to express those things that are most important more.
Okay. And what advice would you give to someone who's struggling to overcome and let go of a past trauma experience?
Okay, I'm not a therapist, so this is partly an area where I need to be careful about it. So the first thing would be to really discuss with him whether therapy would be most appropriate. Having said this, there are loads of things that we can do in coaching in relation to a trauma. We can explore the story and possibly deconstruct it. What really happened, and what beliefs did we formed from that story. So maybe something happened to me in the past, and I create from that the belief that I'm not good enough. I don't deserve happiness. And in coaching, we can deconstruct some of those false links, because one doesn't have something to do with the other. There could also be a journey to do something that some people may find a little bit challenging and also upsetting, and that is exploring what good came out of that traumatic experience, even while still acknowledging that it was traumatic and that it was a bad thing that happened. Also looking, but still, what did it help me? Did it maybe help me to become an overachiever? Did it help me to become more careful? Did it help me to become really good in a particular skill as a result of it? Did it help me to really be interested in personal growth? Because if we look for it, we can always find something positive. Like in my experience, where I was ill for 2 years, in a way, also a traumatic experience, but I would say it's the best thing that ever happened to me, because I would have lived my life, continued to live my life in a golden cage as a zombie on a treadmill. And I really, because I didn't listen to any of my warning signs that my body sent me, I needed to have the big traumatic experience for me to wake up and create a second spring in my life.
Really good answer to that. I like how you put it in terms of like, breaking down the experience and seeing also like what exactly happened, what beliefs that came out of it, and then also how you're talking about seeing the benefit of how it helped you. Because a lot of people don't always do that. They often look back at the experience and just see all the bad bits and think it was traumatic. But actually, there's always a silver lining that people can learn from. So
yeah, I mean, you probably heard that before, that our emotions are a response to our thoughts and the stories that we create about what happens to us. We always think that a certain event causes a certain emotion, but actually it's the way we process that event. And if we become better skilled at controlling the stories that we create about what happens to us, we also become better equipped to create emotional balance in our life.
that's a good point there. Okay, so next question. So why do you feel so many people struggle with having the right mindset to achieve high performing goals?
Okay. Again, it's quite a generalizing question.
Mm.
There could be many reasons for that. What I often find is that people, including me, can have a negative mindset because there's a certain fixation to certain defense mechanisms or worldviews that we created as a child. For example, if we talked about perfectionism, often a perfectionist is overly fixated with perfection because they want to avoid criticism. As a child, I learned I'm safe if I avoid criticism, and to avoid criticism, I need to be perfect. So they constantly self-regulate themselves, and nothing is ever good enough. And at some level, that sometimes serves them, on another not. Another negative mindset could be that I believe the world is full of threats and dangers, and I need to be careful. And again, that could come from a childhood experience and a defense mechanism that was created. If I just constantly screen the world for risks, then I will be safe. So whenever we have a really repetitive negative thought that goes through our life, there's probably something that we are fixated with, and where a part in us thinks, I have to stick with that to be safe.
That's a really good answer again. So recently in Cosmopolitan magazine, they found the number one reason for breakdown in relationships, whether it's romantic or business relationships, was communication. So how important do you feel good communication is in relationships? And what advice would you give to people who are wanting to, improve the communication in their relationships and have more impactful relationships?
Yeah, I mean, communication obviously is key. That is basically a relationship. You can only have a relationship by interacting with each other, and we do that through communication. Effective communication starts by really listening actively. What that means is not listening in a way that I already think about my answer, but really taking time to absorb what the other person says. And we all probably been guilty of that somebody tells us a story like, oh, I've been on the trip to South America, and you jump in, oh yeah, I've been to South America, and then suddenly you're in your story. That's not really great communication. So it's about listening and trying to understand the world from the perspective of the other person. Because we all look at the world very, very differently. And it's quite interesting to establish that in workshops, how there can be the same situation and people look completely different at it. You may have seen this image in the book by Stephen Covey, The 7 Principles of Highly Effective People. There's an image of a woman, and depending on how your brain is switched, you either see an old woman or a young woman. And you can have a whole room arguing, no, it's an old woman, can't you see that? No, it's a young woman. And it shows us that we can argue about something where we are really convinced we have it right, but in fact, we've only seen half of the reality. And if we take time to understand the world from the other person, that is really a great start for effective communication.
I remember reading this picture I saw, and it spoke about 60% listening, 20% speaking, then 10% action, and then 10% planning. And that's how we should form our communication. I thought that is very true, that a lot of people, as you're saying, they don't listen. They just have the intention on themselves. And because they're not listening, they don't really see the world from the other person. And that's, I tend to find you're right. It is the reason why a lot of relationships break down, because we just have attention on what our needs, what do we need, how do we feel.
And I think this is also the cause of most conflicts in the world. One person having a worldview and trying to impose their values upon the others. No, you need to understand my corporate values or my religious values, and the other person does exactly the same. And there's a different way of really embracing what we stand for, but not imposing on the other person and taking time to understand what makes them have different values or different views.
Yeah, I totally agree there. So, what do you think? This is a very generalist question again, but what do you think are the most common reasons for people failing to create a life of meaning and purpose that you find amongst your clients?
Yeah, it's a bit similar to the earlier question about fulfillment. It is because they don't actually know what that means, purpose and fulfillment. And what often can happen, and I was certainly there myself, was that we live the life on autopilot. One thing leads to the other. Like I studied law because I didn't know what else to do, and then okay, I guess I studied law, I become a lawyer. And then I'm a lawyer. Well, I guess it would be silly to change jobs now because I've studied and invested all this money and time, and suddenly we are just stuck in one particular life. So what I recommend everybody, at least once in their life, and I do it every year, is to step out of your life, almost like look at your life from the outside, from a bird's eye perspective, and ask yourself, what am I really doing here? And is that still what I want to do? What does fulfillment look like for me? What is meaningful? What is purposeful? And maybe it is, or maybe not. Maybe we want to add some other things to our life, or like I did, completely change course.
I also liken to me to this analogy of like, you know, like you have a car, you go get your car MOT, but we need to have a human MOT. And we need to have that
Yeah.
like, I don't know, maybe 12 months, 9 months, we take stock and like, okay, well, is your life going the way you want it to be? Are you reaching your goals? You know, are you fulfilling your purpose? What have you done? You know, I think people don't really do enough of that, like actually really analyze their whole life in that way. And I think we should be doing that.
Yeah, I give my clients tools for a New Year's Eve ritual where they look at what were my achievements in the last year, what did I not achieve, what do I want to do in the next year so that next time New Year's Eve I look back and think this was a great year. And I also have a wall chart where they can track it all over the year, because the more conscious we are about what we actually want, the more likely it is that we can actually create it for us.
That's very true again. So during difficult periods that we're currently experiencing, what are your best tips that you use to stay motivated that you can then advise to other people who are feeling demotivated?
You mean during the pandemic?
Yeah, or difficult situation like how we're experiencing. Like, what's your best tips that allows you to always stay motivated?
That partly depends on what motivates that particular person. And again, that can be very different. It is about the clarity about what you want from life and how can you link the current situation to your ultimate goal and how can you make the best out of the situation. For example, for me in the lockdown, it was about appreciating all the positives of the lockdown. I finally had time to do all my backlog of projects and I was actually extremely productive. And I felt more peace in my life and I enjoyed the simplicity. I know that other people for whom interactions with other people are more important than for me as an introvert. For them, it was important to find new ways of engaging with people to keep them motivated. So we all have these essential needs. We need to understand what they are and find those new ways. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. You know, I like how you put it there. Like, you know, we all have, like you're saying, we all have different needs. So, you know, for example, someone who likes to go to the gym, they'll need to look at ways how can they stay fit at home and how can they maintain that.
Right, yeah, that's
Rather
right.
than,
And actually, something else that springs to my mind, and I think that works also very well. I encourage people to sometimes look at themselves again from the outside as if they were watching a movie and they were the main character. What would that character do? For example, your hero stories of what you did in 2020 during the big London lockdown. What are you going to tell people in 10, 15 years? How you made the best out of the situation? maybe the new skills that you learned, the new experiences you had. For example, cutting your own hair, which is something that I learned to do on my own. And I find this movie perspective really interesting, because then we can think, okay, if I want to be here in this situation, really self-empowered, what would I do? And then thinking, well, maybe I try some of those things and see how I enjoy them.
Yeah, that's very true. I like that. So could you provide with 2 or 3 resources? These could be books or podcasts that you can recommend our viewers that will help them in terms of increasing maybe the performance or self-esteem that have, really helped you or your clients along the way?
Yeah, I mean, there are obviously so many of them. It's quite difficult to pick some. 2 that I particularly like is, now I forgot the name, the Chimp Paradox, which is a really great book that helps us understand how our mind works and why it sometimes works seemingly in a logical way, and how it makes much more sense if we actually break it down and understand what actually happens. The other one I really like is the Breakthrough Experience by John DeMartini, which has a really powerful process that helps us understand what we discussed earlier, how to always look at positives and negatives in balance. So every event that we experience as negative also had a positive. Or every person that we reject because we don't like their personality traits, they have something to learn from us. And so we have something to learn from them. So there's some really great exercise in there to help us be less judgmental, less one-sided, overly positive or overly negative, and more balanced. What I would also say, and I find that myself, I used to be a personal development junkie, reading these books over and over, but not really creating much change. Because I personally find it quite difficult to create change on my own with books. So I went to retreats and have had my own coaches, and those were the big interventions that really helped me having quantum leaps in my personal growth.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think a lot of people underestimate the value of having a coach. And I think it's like Tony Robbins, he speaks about how everyone should have at least 1 or 2 coaches in their life, because you need that different voices and different insights, and also you can have a different coach for different areas of your life to help you grow. And we should have that, because like you're saying, it's very easy to pick up a book, but it's very hard to then implement that book yourself, because you're going to still be blind to the certain blind spots you might have, and you're also going to struggle with motivation and accountability. So I think you bring up a good point, the need to having a coach there.
Yeah, and I always work from time to time, not non-stop. I have my own coaches that I work with, because as you say, I'm too much in my own life story. It's difficult for me to see certain things. Like I can at the moment see what's behind you on the wall, but you won't be able to see it yourself. And also the accountability aspect that you mentioned, really, really important. Simply just knowing that there will be another coaching session and that you committed to something, and that you also paid a lot of money for the session and you don't want to waste it, is just a huge driver, at least for me, and other clients tell me the same, to really get things done.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there again. So what's one hobby activity that you're not very good at?
So did you say hobby or activity?
Yeah, that you're not very good at. Because you know what you're good at. What's one thing you're not good at?
God, there are many things I'm not good at. Where shall I start? I'm really bad at sports. Really bad. That's actually one of my childhood traumas, always being the last one to be picked on a team. And that never really changed. I mean, I go to the gym, but I'm not really good at competitive sports. I'm not really good at staying away from muffins. I've got a little bit of a sweet tooth, so that's my dark side.
Yeah, I love muffins too, so I know your pain.
And I'm terrible at keeping order in my drawers. They're all messy. I've just revealed some really deep secrets here. Yeah. I've never shared them with anybody else in my life.
Okay, so this is two questions in one. So what is next for you in terms of like your coaching? What you got lined up for yourself? And then how can people reach out to work with you? Like what social media platforms are you on? Or what's your website that people can reach you to then work with you?
Yeah, I mean, what I'm really looking forward to progressing is just before the pandemic started, I created a leadership academy with a few other coaches together. And we had our first live event, and now everything came to a halt. Although you can do it online, our clients didn't want to do it. And I'm really looking forward to doing those live events again, because I really thrive in them, having a room full and doing a whole immersion day. So that would be a project, and I also want to create an online course. That's something I'm quite interested in. Or get in contact with me, the easiest way is to go to my website, which is hansschumann.com. Hans Schumann is with 2 N. I am on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, and on LinkedIn, but the easiest way is to just visit the website, and you can book a free discovery call on there. And you can also just email me at info@hansschumann.com. Always happy to answer questions.
Yeah, so everyone who's watching, I definitely recommend you to reach out to Hans and start working with him, because you'll get some good results. So then the final question, what's one final piece of advice that you can give to people wanting to increase their confidence, or, you know, kind of like master the mindset that you want to end on?
Yeah, this is again something really deep, I think. Those parts that we reject, we don't like, we need to learn to love those parts. And the reason why I'm saying it, for example, let's assume I have a lot of shame, and the shame makes me not confident enough, and procrastinate and not really reaching my goals. That shame probably comes from something in my childhood that made me shameful, maybe one event or series of events, and it could even be a mild or big trauma. If I now tell that part of myself, I don't really like my shame, it's not good enough. It's actually really pitiful that you have this shame, and I want you to go away. You're basically reinforcing something like the trauma that caused it in the first instance. And you can't force these parts to go away. What you can do is to really listen to them, bring us back to communicating with that part, and learn to understand and love it. And once you have a rapport with this part and you can calm it down, then it may be open to cooperate with you to try different things. So it's about working with the parts that we don't like, not against them.
That's really good advice. So yeah, I think a lot of viewers are going to really find that beneficial. So Hans, it's been a real pleasure in hearing your insights, and you've given us some really good key insights tonight that I think everyone who's going to watch this now or watch this later on are going to find really beneficial. So it's been a pleasure, having you on this call, and I know you're quite busy. So, we wish you the best of luck in your future, and so we wish you the best of luck, and we look forward to seeing you skyrocket in the future. And have a great evening. And for everyone else, there will be more business conversation interviews coming up very shortly. We've got some tomorrow, so keep a watch out for those. Otherwise, Hans, I'm going to let you go. Have a great evening, and we'll speak soon.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Hans. Bye.